Hello, sexy, and welcome to the first episode of a series of videos that will be appearing on this channel whenever. I won't be giving you a structure, I won't be giving myself a schedule, I go by my own rules. It's called Celebrity Biographies. Each episode I will have a different celebrity's biography and I will read you stuff from it. It's as simple as that. Episode 1, we'll be profiling. We are starting with the big guns here. I'm not going in lightly. I'm not tiptoeing into this series. We're going in hard. Winton. Now, before any of you lose your shit, I've got to let you know that Winton released this book in 2002. So if any of you are hoping for anecdotes about Hole in the Wall, then you've come to the wrong place. Now, with Winton, there's only one place you want to start, and that's right in the middle of the 90s. Winton's decade. We begin. By the year 1995, life was feeling good. Supermarket Sweep was now firmly established as one of daytime TV's most popular shows, and thanks to this, other jobs were coming in. Of course they were, Dale. Being in demand was a new experience for me. I doubt that very much, Dale. And each time Nick, my agent, rang to tell me something new had come along, I was thrilled. I never had a career strategy then, or now. Working in television and being a high-profile professional presenter was, and still is, an adventure. National Lottery in it to win it. Doesn't stop. Garry Bushell, a gutsy TV critic whom I'd always admired for writing what so many others would think twice about before putting pen to paper, had never mentioned Supermarket Sweep in his columns, but when he wrote his piece, Day Crime Television, listing the... I love that he's remembered the title of that piece. Day Crime Television. Listing the top 10 worst daytime shows he had ever seen, he placed our show in the #1 spot. Hard times for Dale. Friends and colleagues, thinking I would be distraught, kept ringing up and saying, "Are you alright, Dale?" But surprisingly, though this may seem, I took it all with good heart. Well, I thought, everybody, including Garry, is entitled to their opinion, and if I've got to be in the shit list rather than the hit list, I'd rather be #1. Those close to me, however, became even more concerned when they heard that the very next day after the list had been published, both Garry and I were appearing on Bob Monkhouse's Celebrity Squares. OMG. I'd always been a huge fan of Bob's, who is one of showbiz's real gentlemen, and for me this was a family moment. Mum had appeared in his 1959 movie Dentist in the Chair, and in the past, when journalists had asked me, what would be your personal mark of success, I'd replied, being in the box on Celebrity Squares. Once I've done that, I'll die a happy man. Stay tuned, guys, the Bushell-Winton standoff is imminent. When I arrived at Central Television in Nottingham, I discovered that Celebrity Squares was filmed in the same studio by the same crew as Supermarket Sweep. Doesn't he talk to his crew? Literally, no idea. Like, surely at some point one of the crew members would have let slip the Celebrity Square job that they had coming up. So I felt very much at home when I was introduced to the other competitors, Ross King and Lionel Blair, and Cheryl Baker, who'd recently had a huge success with Bucks Fizz. Recently, Dale, you told me that this was 1995. Bucks Fizz, definitely in the 80s, I'm thinking mid-80s, so this was like 10 years. That's not recent success for Cheryl. But anyway, when I came face to face with a somewhat embarrassed looking Garry Bushell in a corridor, I thought, right, I'll deal with this, as I do most things. Head on. Holding out my hand, I said with a smile, "Garry Bushell, Dale Winton. It's so nice to meet you. How are you? I need to talk to you about your column in yesterday's paper, but now's not the time, so I'll deal with you later." "Oh, okay," he replied, obviously very ill at ease. "On second thoughts," I added, looking him straight in the eye, "I'll deal with you right now. I read every word in your column and have memorised most of it, including the title of the piece. I'm very aware of your opinion of me, and I'm left wondering one thing. Does this mean a bonk is now out of the question?" Oh, Dale, you're such a card. It was the last thing he had expected me to say. He beamed from ear to ear. That moment was the beginning of a friendship that has lasted to this day. I still admire his uncompromising approach to his work, and I couldn't have been more pleased when he asked me to be godfather to his lovely daughter Jenna. Now, as well as Garry Bushell, we know that Dale's got a lot of other celebrity friends, including one Cilla Black. Now, I found a very amusing anecdote about Cilla in here. Dale's on his way to LA. I begin. "I phoned a couple of friends in England, including Cilla. You'll never guess where I am," I said to Cilla. "You're on the runway in Keflavik, Iceland," she replied, quick as a flash. "How on earth do you know that?" I asked. totally and utterly gobsmacked. Because if you look behind you, she replied, you'll see one of my producers who's just told me you're on the plane. It was such a Cilla moment. Cilla. Now I know I probably caused uproar earlier by revealing that this book is very pre-hole in the wall, but I can give you some comfort in the knowledge that this book is very post-Touch the Truck. Let's get in. At the beginning of 2001, two execs from Channel 5 spoke to me about hosting a new show called Touch the Truck. I liked the sound of it instantly. It seemed to me to be a good example of the new breed of television programmes that were being dubbed reality TV. Big Brother, which had been first transmitted the year before, had done very well in the ratings, and I have always been a fan of quirky shows. And just in case you don't know what Touch the Truck is, I'm sure you do, we all watched it, didn't we? But it was a Channel 5 reality TV show hosted by Mr. Dale Winton, where you had a big truck, contestants had to touch the truck, whoever was touching it longest won the truck. So, TV gold, as you can imagine. Now we go to the end of that because, you know, we don't need to relive it, we all watched, but here's what Dale thought about the winner. I did laugh though when the guy who won the truck was asked how he felt. I don't approve of gas-guzzling trucks, he retorted, and I'm so concerned about what this does to the environment. I'm going to sell it and launch an eco-party with the money. I thought that was so Channel 5 and wished him well. The unfortunate thing about Touch the Truck was that it was screened the same week as Celebrity Big Brother. That was the unfortunate thing about Touch the Truck, wasn't it? I knew there was something unfortunate about Touch the Truck. That's what it was. But for this clash, I am sure that it could have continued and become an even bigger success. Either way, it was very quirky and I loved hosting it. If it wasn't for Celebrity Big Brother, Touch the Truck would currently be in its 12th or 13th series. We're nearly at the end of Dale's book, but I know that when you look at this face, all you want to know about is Dale's sex life. Thankfully, it's covered in the book. I am wise enough to realise that if you appear on telly and court publicity, there are certain things that people think they have the right to know, but the level of interest in my sexuality has always amazed me. Doesn't it amaze you as well? The level of interest in Dale's sexuality. It is a problem. And it was, like, even in 2002 it was a problem, but now it's... I have people coming up to me in the street saying, I know who you've slept with, and then after a bit of coaxing, they name names I've never even heard of. So let's just say that I haven't got to this age without trying most things there are to try sexually. But this has only ever been with people of my own age, who are mature enough to know their own minds. Dale has marked a line in the sand there. Don't you cross it. I first fell in love at about 18, being me. I fell in love with one of each at the same time, a girl called Caroline and a guy called John. This could be considered bizarre, but that's how it was. I wasn't going through some mind-blowing crisis about my sexuality, I was simply doing what came naturally to me, and wavering between the two, unsure with whom I enjoyed being the most. Although this was the very beginning of the 70s, when attitudes to relationships were far less liberal than they are now, I never felt under any pressure to compromise how I felt, and I didn't feel at all guilty about how I was expressing my feelings. Not at all guilty! You're two-timing two people, Dale! Oh my goodness! You won't be surprised to know that Dale chose John in the end, but it didn't work out clearly because Dale went off to Soho to try and pick up some guys. Here's this. As we walked past the village, another Soho bar, I saw an Adonis in there. It was very busy, but as there was a gap between him and the guy next to the bar, I made a quick decision, marched in with great deliberation and plonked my briefcase alongside him. "Hi, can I get you a drink?" I asked, astonishing myself. "That would be nice," he replied in a lilt I didn't immediately recognise. "Are you from Yorkshire?" "No." "Are you Irish?" "Yes, I do have some Irish in me." He was very cool in the laid-back sense of the word. I introduced him to Dean and then, astonishing myself again, suggested that we meet for a drink or dinner one evening. By this time I was like, yes! And beside myself. "Shall we exchange telephone numbers?" I asked, opening my briefcase. In contrast to my immaculate grooming that night, this was an absolute tip, full of papers and all manner of what have you. I love Dale and his briefcase in Soho. I love it so much. If you want to know more about Dale's Soho adventures, I suggest picking up this book from somewhere. I'll lend it to you if you know me. I'll lend you this book if you want it. We're just going to finish with the last line, so if you are planning to read this book and don't want the very last line spoilt for you, then turn off now, or close your ears. Close your ears. That's what people say, innit? "All I want now is just more of the same, please. Life is a lottery," it said, "and I'm in it to win it."